Welcome back to another video. This is Nate from In the Mix Light and Sound. I wanted to put together this video series for a while. This series will include 3 videos divided by the equipment that I use. The first video will be about what I call the small gig rig or the bar rig, typically used when portability is a factor. The second video will focus on the large rack or festival rack. The last video in the series will showcase the different control methods that I use at different events. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. In the second video of this series, we will take a look at the large gig rig or festival rig. This is my larger rack designed to keep setup easy, but in a larger package. This rack was designed to ride in the trailer or box truck and be able to take that kind of abuse. It has also been designed to give different options depending on the event. We'll go into a few examples throughout the video here. This rig has evolved over time based on my experiences, but throughout its different versions, the philosophy has been the same. The purpose is to have an essentially all-in-one, quick-to-deploy rig. Time is money, and I don't like having to spend time at an event hooking up various items that could have been pre-rigged ahead of time. Think about what goes into setting up just the mixing location for a show. You have the mixer, that has to be placed somewhere. Maybe on a table or a stand. That takes extra time to set up in position. Most digital mixers need some type of networking for remote control. That being the case, you have to set up a switch or a router and plug in the Ethernet cables. Maybe you are using wireless mics. The receivers then need to be positioned and signal cable run to the mixer. Maybe networking for them as well. You might set up a computer for control or multi-tracking or for measurement, etc. You have to run a power, networking, and some kind of connection to the mixer, maybe a USB cable. Then you have to run power and have power outlets to plug into each individual device. So the list goes on, and I didn't even mention the uncasing, casing, and transport for each of those devices. My goal, instead of having to rinse and repeat that at every show, was to have a unit I can roll up, take the lids off, run power and signal, and be ready to go. So let's dive into the festival rig. The rack itself is a 20U shock mount case. As this rides around in the trailer, I wanted to make sure it had extra protection for the electronics that are racked up. It has 4-inch wheels that lock. The 4-inch wheels really help when pulling the case through challenging terrain. The only major modification I made to the case was to add hardware that allows the rear lid to be used as a table. Having a table available without having to drag along an actual table has actually proven really handy. You'll see some examples in the third video when we talk about control devices. There are 4 butterfly latches that hold the lids in place. Now let's go inside the rack. We'll start with the front of the rack and work our way up from the bottom to the top. The first device is a Whirlwind single-phase 30-amp power distro. It takes a 240 30-amp in, which is a NEMA L1430. It splits the two 120 legs into 5 circuits total. The 5th circuit on the front is more of a convenience outlet. On the back of the power distro, the circuits 1 through 4 are distributed through duplex NEMA 520, sometimes known as Edison outlets, common to households here in the United States, and 2 True 1 PowerCon outlets. This is for each circuit, so 4 receptacles per circuit, 2 NEMA, and 2 True 1 PowerCon. The True 1 connector is great because not only is it a locking type connector, but also is able to be connected under load, which typical PowerCon is not. It is also weather resistant. Several of my main speakers, including the DB Technologies IG3Ts, have True 1 power inputs. At the same time, having standard 20 amp receptacles adds flexibility. Speaking of flexibility, I have a dedicated 10-gauge power cable for the rack. When I come up on 30 amp outlets, I can run straight through, but more often I'll have an adapter that can plug into a duplex outlet and allow me to use all of the outlets of the power distro. Now, I am limited to the amperage of the duplex, but using the 10-gauge cable can help against voltage drops over longer runs. From here, power takes 2 paths in the rack. One circuit is dedicated to a 20-amp rack mount power strip in the rear of the rack. The other path takes us to our next component. Moving up in the rack, we have a voltage regulator. This particular piece of gear was purchased when I had frequent events at a venue that had somewhat sketchy power, and they refused to upgrade. I was concerned about gear shutting down due to voltage drops.
This voltage regulator helps to ensure that the voltage going into the electrical equipment remains constant in case of fluctuations. I no longer work with that venue, so the voltage regulator is a bit of a relic. However, it does add peace of mind and might be the next best thing other than perhaps a double conversion UPS. Speaking of legacy, up next on the rack we have a Midas DL32 and M32. Prior to purchasing the Behringer Wing rack, this was the mixer I used. I continued to use the DL32. It is hooked into the wing rack. It is nice to have front-facing inputs and outputs. Depending on how I'm set up, I may use the front inputs from Subsnakes. Here's another part of the flexibility. I have another rack that contains a front-facing power strip and another DL32. There are many gigs that involve a stage without any ramps. The festival rack is not something to be lifted. So what I'll do is use the second DL32 as a stage box and run it to the wing rack. Other times, I may use both DL32s depending on what is the most efficient run. In some scenarios, I'll have the rack placed upstage and catch all the back line there, while using the other DL32 downstage to catch vocal mics and other inputs. No matter which way it gets set up, it's nice to have multiple options. Having an additional DL32, in addition to the wing rack's 24 inputs, gives me some redundancy if a piece of hardware were to fail. It also gives me multiple input options. That can come in handy in situations where you need the inputs for, say, an opener and a headliner that are all wired up at the same time. Back to the topic of redundancy, rather than replace the M32 in the rack, it still lives here as a backup. Sadly, it doesn't get used very much anymore, but it's there if I need it. Next up, we have two rack drawers. I picked up these drawers at different times for different projects, but it worked nicely to finally house them here. The 3U rack drawer houses 4 SLXD wireless mics. We'll get into a conversation on the wireless in a moment, but the drawer is convenient because there are less accessories to carry around. The 1U drawer holds the SLXD battery charger. It will charge up to 8 batteries, and it is also where the batteries are stored in between events. Its slim size allows it to fit nicely in this drawer. Also in this drawer is a wireless keyboard and mouse for the PC, and a box of business cards. Above the drawers, we have the Behringer Wing Rack. Yes, if you've watched the previous video in this series, I have 2 wing racks. There are plenty of videos on the capabilities and features of the wing rack, so we won't cover that here. Aside from the typical features, I really enjoy the routing capabilities of the wing rack. As mentioned above, I may have inputs coming from different stage boxes, I might have outputs going to wedges, in-ear monitors, mains, subs, etc. From an input standpoint, the digital patching of the wing makes transitions between bands easy. I can route any input to any channel, so that makes it very convenient when flexibility is required due to changing stage plots or surprise inputs. The wing rack is mounted towards the top of the rack to allow easy access to the touchscreen. If there's interest, I may do another video on the topic of my wing workflow. In the back of the wing rack, the power, USB to computer, networking, stage connect to a DN48160, and the 4 channels of wireless SLXD are permanently connected. Above the wing, we have 4 channels of Shure SLXD wireless. Aside from being able to provide upchargeable solutions to clients, wireless on this level just adds convenience. First, it is less cables to coil up at the end of a show. Just gather the mics, put them in a drawer. Second, I've found that it provides for easier solutions when you have to adapt to what is on stage. Let's say the band shows up and needs another vocal mic. Instead of having to run another XLR and mic, you can just grab a wireless mic and place it wherever it needs to go. I've even used them on instruments in a pinch. In a festival situation where turnover time is short, this can be a show saver. I use SEV7 capsules on these microphones. For their price point, the sound quality can't be beat in my opinion. The tight pattern can help cut down on stage noise, and I have yet to hear a complaint from an artist who has used them live. The antennas are combined with a Shure passive antenna combiner buried in the rack, so that there is only one pair of antennas they share. I switched the quarter wave antennas for half wave Omni antennas. The wireless are permanently connected to the wing rack, and also to the network router via Cat5. The network connection allows the 2 units to speak to one another, but also allows me to use software like Shure's Wireless Workbench or Mixing Station for remote monitoring of the signal and battery power. At the very top of the rack, we have a pile rack-mounted power strip. What I like about the pile design is first, it has several convenience outlets on the front, including a USB. Newer versions have more USB power outs than this one I have. Second, the rear outlets are not mounted in the unit itself. Rather, they are mounted on little cables of varying lengths, kind of like a squid. This makes it very easy to plug in items because you don't have to reach or feel your way in the case like most rack mount power strips. Also, since it is used for a lot of low voltage equipment, most of that comes with transformers built into the plugs, or wall warts as they are known. Because the receptacles are on flexible cables of varying lengths, it makes it really easy to plug these in and not worry about spacing. I highly recommend this unit if you have equipment that has those types of plugs. Finally, we have some simple LED strip tape around the perimeter of the front of the rack. It makes it easier to see the panels in the dark and adds some bling to the rack case. Now on to the back. If we start at the bottom, we have a rack mount power strip rated for 20 amps. This is used to provide power to the active monitor speakers I use. Above that, we have the Clark Technic DN4816O. This is connected directly to the wing rack via Stage Connect using a DMX cable. This is typically used for monitor outs. Now, you may have noticed with the DL32 on the front of the rack, I already have 16 outs. Why more? The reason is a personal preference for me. Many times I'll have this rack side stage, and it is easier and cleaner to run monitor outputs, and sometimes mains too, out of the back of the rack. Since I have room for the power strip, it makes it a clean run to monitors using dual power and XLR cables. It's closer to the ground, so there's also not as much strain on the cables versus running them from the DL and having them hang from the rack, up higher. As we head further up the rear of the rack, we left some spacing so we can get to the power outs of the Whirlwind distro and the voltage regulator. We then have a 1U 16-port Ethernet switch. This switch also acts as a shelf of sorts for some items that are mounted to it. First, we have the mini PC. This mini PC serves a few cases. First, I use it for break music and media playback, but from time to time, it's also used for multi-tracking acts. It also provides a hardline control to the wing rack, so if for some reason my Wi-Fi were to go down, I still have another way other than the rack interface itself to control it. The PC is connected via USB to the wing rack. I also have a touchscreen portable monitor. It connects to the PC via USB and HDMI and provides the main method of interfacing with the PC. I also have a wireless mouse and mini keyboard in the 1U drawer if I prefer a more tactile control. Next over, we have a DMX King ArtNet node. This is connected directly to the Ethernet switch and allows me to run DMX over the network. It is handy to have the node mounted, so for shows requiring lighting, it is just a matter of running the DMX cable out of the node. Next, we have a TP-Link router. This is essentially the brains of the network. Technically, this is an optional piece of equipment. I could have everything that interfaces with the network on a static IP, and for many of my devices, like the wing rack for example, I do. However, occasionally a guest engineer or artist will need or want to connect a device to the network for controlling the monitors or mains or etc. Rather than having to figure out how to program a static IP address on all these different types of devices, the router exists to assign an IP from its DHCP server. That is the main reason I included it in the rack. The Ethernet switch acts as the hub for all network devices. The PC ArtNet node, router, wing rack, and SLXD receivers are all connected. The last piece of the puzzle is a wireless access point. I use a Ubiquiti ACM. It runs off of power over Ethernet. So from the Ethernet switch to the PoE adapter to the access point is how the connection runs. The Ubiquiti has been bulletproof thus far. With some Ethernet cable length, I can mount it to stands and get it up over the audience. That enables me to run control wirelessly at many events without the fear of dropout. I highly recommend this device. The final component is mounted to the top of the rack. It is a simple USB charged battery-powered LED light that allows me to see in the back of the rack when needed. I hope you enjoyed this tour of the large gig rig, part 2 of the Tale of Two Rack series. In the next video of the series, we'll explore the various methods of control interfaces that I use at different gigs, so be sure to check out that video when it drops. Also, if you haven't seen the first video in this series, be sure to take a look as it details our smaller, more portable rack install. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like this video, and if you haven't subscribed, we would really appreciate if you would. I'll try to provide links to the equipment in the description here. I look forward to your comments. And with that, on to the next one. Thank you.